I try and be as optimistic as possible. I try and just enjoy what I do. I do enjoy what I do. I don't try to enjoy it. I enjoy what I do. I love my job. I love the entertainment industry. And I think your attitude reflects on your team and the people around you, but also it has the biggest impact on what your day is going to be like. If you can try and be optimistic, maybe something will go well. I think there are natural born leaders, 100%, but I think it is something that you can learn. So I am very much a different manager now to what I was when I initially left cruise ships. And then when I went back to cruise ships, even last year, I'm now a different manager again. How can we really make this happen? Instead of taking like a veteran, it's like, I really want to try and take someone brand new, even like reaching out to college lecturers, stage management lecturers, saying, who is someone you think has a general interest in doing something like this?
Welcome to the Theatre at Life podcast. Today, we're talking to Jack McLean.
A lifelong fan of live music and entertainment, Jack found his passion for live performance in Glasgow, Scotland. He worked as a local stagehand, loading in and out all the touring bands that came through. He's now been working in the live entertainment industry for 20 years. Jack has worked on live concerts, cruise ships, theme parks, large-scale resident aquatic shows, and hotel casino operations. This journey led Jack to Royal Caribbean, where he played key roles in the technical aspects of their ships and was selected for the startup phase of their newly built ships Oasis, Allure, Quantum, and Anthem of the Seas. Jack later ventured into stage management with Dragone, the Han Show in Wuhan, and Motiongate in Dubai. During the pandemic, Jack transitioned to retail management but returned to Royal Caribbean as entertainment technical director for the launch of Wonder of the Seas. Currently serving as the GSM at La Pearl, Jack has seized an opportunity to apply his extensive skills in a place that holds deep significance for both him and his family. Jack, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thank you very much for having me. It's an honor to be here.
Amazing. Well, I want to start with a place that holds deep significance for you and your family. Is this Dubai?
Yes. So this would be the first place kind of off of ships. My wife and I, we met on ships and worked there for 7 and 8 years. When we moved here, that we kind of felt home as such. And this was the longest that we'd ever stayed somewhere together. So we kind of built our home here. And when we naturally moved on and did some other things, it was just nice to be able to come back here and see how it's progressed and join a show that I'd wanted to work at for since it launched in, I think, 2016 as well. So, yeah, it's really nice to be back here.
And on land for after a long time at sea, right?
Yeah,
how does that feel?
It's great. So I did 7 years with Royal Caribbean and then made the transition. And then when I went back last year, it was like returning to a family, but it was nice to be able to come back and again live on land. It's the small things that we crave when we're away on ships.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Well, and then the family for sure.
100%. That was the biggest factor in coming off of ships and moving back on land, to be able to do it together. So living away and doing all of our conversations and catch-ups and seeing Finn, our son, grow up on the other side of a phone. It's not how we always want to do it. We do what we have to do and what we want to do as well, because I really enjoy working on cruise ships and the role that I had. But it's definitely nice to be able to go to sleep together and wake up together.
That's amazing. So tell us a little bit about how you started you started working as a local stagehand, but what got you into that? How did you go from your childhood into the arts in that manner? Were you exposure?
Sure. So it was my sister's fault primarily. So I think when I was 16, she offered me tickets to a concert for my birthday. And she offered me, you can either go see Green Day in Glasgow, or you can go see the Foo Fighters in Edinburgh. So I was like, I think I'll go see the Foo Fighters. And that was the first concert I'd ever been to. And from there started a very expensive obsession of trying to go to as many things as I could. So when I studied audio in college and then university, I was lucky to be based in Glasgow when I graduated. So my dad put me in contact with the local touring stagehand crew. And it's just a family that runs the business out of the house. They have done since the 1960s. And he somehow got me this guy's phone number. And so I pestered him at home until eventually he said, look, you've called me enough times. Somebody will call you today. If they don't, you can have their job. So, and that evening I was off to do a load-in at the Glasgow Carling Academy for a band called Block Party. And it just kind of started from there. So it was something I'd always wanted to be involved in the live entertainment industry. And it was just, I was very fortunate, right place, right time, and got to work with some amazing bands and load in and load out and just kind of really feel that lifestyle. And from there, I was quite obsessed with it. And it's something that I was happy to engage and try and do for the rest of my life.
If you fell in love doing load in and load out, huge respect.
100%. So it was I think what really got me for it was there's a venue in Scotland called Glasgow Barrowlands. It's synonymous in the UK and Europe as being one of the hardest venues to work at because there's one single chain hoist and 3 flights of stairs. So if it weighs above a certain limit, it goes up the chain hoist. If it's under that limit, and I think the limit was like 250 kgs, then it's a pair of hands or 4 pair of hands and it's up the flights of stairs. And so I did that
Oh my.
Yeah, I think the first band I did it for was like the Arctic Monkeys, and that was my second gig. And now if you can survive, then you can stay as long as you want. And so from there, I think that Christmas, I spent most of the evenings sleeping at the venue and going home on my break to shower and clean up because Christmas, busy season. I definitely fell in love with the load in, load out lifestyle.
Well, no comments, but good for you.
It's
tough.
a lot. It's a lot. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's the characters as well, the personalities that come off of each tour bus, the stories that they have. I fell in love with the stories. So I worked with some people who were like, I remember David Bowie on this stage in like 1980, or I saw the Ramones in their original incarnation here. And you're like, you see these things as
That's
photos on an album that's now like worldwide famous, but to know people that did that load in, I always find that quite cool. And I just wanted to kind of be part of the stories for the future.
Now you have your own stories to tell.
I do, yes. There's a couple. So
That's really interesting. I think that actually, starting with that kind of hard grunt work, I guess it's like any other work then becomes easy after that, right? Like I think your metric of what's a hard in or out would be the bar would be very high for you, right?
yeah, if you turn up and there's only 3 trucks outside, then you're laughing. If you turn up and there's 20 to 40, then you're like, all right, here we go.
This is a day.
And then it's chain hoist after chain hoist. And you kind of judge how good or bad it's going to be with the number of chain hoists that just keep on coming up and how high they're stacked. And then, then you see the plot for the lighting rig and you're like, okay, sure. But, you're there to allow people to be entertained. And that's ultimately, for me, why I do what I do, is because I enjoy, not that I entertain people, I'm not a performer in any way. I'm very happy being backstage. I enjoy knowing that the people on the other side of the curtain are there to see something that they're desperately wanting to see. And with music, that's a huge thing. So you pay money to go and see the bands that you love to go and see. And some people travel the world to do it as well. So.
Yeah, there's something quite satisfying about, watching an audience enjoy something that you've participated in helping create,
It is, amazing.
So after this, what was your next thing? What your foray was into cruise ships, theme parks? Like what was the next step after that?
Straight into cruise ships. So 2009, I joined Independence of the Seas as they call it a technical stagehand, which is all what I would classify as kind of a carps team. You do a backstage track as such. It's a mixture of stage management and carps, moving things and everything else. And I was really, really fortunate where I joined. So Independence in 2009 had just finished its first 6 months. It'd gone through its inaugural, what we call the startup or takeout team, had started to move on and take vacation. So I'd kind of jumped in as the second rotation. So a lot of people were coming back who had built the ship, and they were planning to go on to their next thing as well. So I naturally became friends with the people that I became friends with, and they took me on to Oasis of the Seas, where I was one of the aquatic stage staff, which is the closest thing to a mixture of a stage manager, carpenter, and aquatic support diver. So I did that. And then you're just exposed to different things. So I never knew anything really about automation or rigging. They're just like, "Oh, do you want to learn?" Yes, I do. So I got promoted to what they call a rigging specialist. I would more deem it a performer flying operator. And then through sheer chance, I was working in the aqua theaters, and naturally you sit in that office, you sit beside the show caller. So in the event that something happened to the show caller, I was the natural backup because I'd listened to the show for 2 years. I was watching it from the same vantage point. I could read off the cue sheet as it was being called. And one evening I get a phone call saying, "Can you call the aqua show tonight? PM's not well." Sure, let me check in with the cast, see how they feel. So I asked the cast, do they have any issues with it? And they said, "Nope, fine." So up I went to deck 12 and called my first show that evening. And then just kind of never looked back. I got promoted into that position as stage manager. And then I was selected for Quantum of the Seas, which was a new class of ship and had a new venue called 270. They were robots and projections and everything else. So they shipped me off to the ABB factory in Detroit to try and kind of do some programming and work out how it should interact, how it should operate from our standpoint. And then, did 2 of those ships. And that was that's 7 years in, I think, a minute and a half I managed to condense that in.
Wow.
India was also my first ship.
And it's a great ship. So we had the circus show, Invitation to Dance, Once Upon a Time. These are classic cruise ship shows. And it was quite an interesting place to join because that was the first time I'd been in a theater as such as well, really. They said, "Do you know your stage left from stage right?" And I'm like, "This way and that way." It's like, "You'll be fine. If you can get that, you'll be fine." So.
Yeah. I think that was my introduction to India as well. Like, can you find your way around the stage? And welcome.
Yep. You know where you're going? Great. If you can get from your room to here, then you'll be fine.
And then how did theme parks come up in your life?
Theme parks. So after cruise ships, I went to Wuhan as part of the Han show. Huge, beautiful show, beautiful production. In quite a difficult place to be to begin with. So we were warned of what it was like going there, but also it was our first time, my wife and I, because we just got married that August, and then I left in November to go to Wuhan. So it was our first time like transitioning together, and it was very difficult to leave kind of behind the life that we have and start somewhere like that brand new. And so after around almost a year, an opportunity came up. So, and I applied on the offset. If you don't apply, then you don't have any luck. So couple of phone calls later, I think I had the interview actually while I was on holiday in Macau visiting friends. And a few weeks after that, they said, "Well, do you want to come out here so you can be part of the pre-opening team? We like your experience. We like the knowledge that we think you can bring to the team." And so, we moved out to Dubai. And that was my first venture into theme parks. And we had some really, really great people. So what they tried to build here, as they always do in the Middle East, is they got some of the best people from around the world. They took a lot of people from Universal Singapore, which was very successful, and Universal Orlando and Japan, and they kind of brought the team together. And so I was really fortunate to work with a lot of those people. But as is somewhat of a standard thing in the Middle East, sometimes the owners didn't always listen to the expertise that they'd brought in. And so it wasn't as successful as it could have been. But I'm glad to say that coming back here now, it's still going. It appears more successful than it was. Maybe it was just a slow burner. But that's how I got into it. I just randomly applied and went from there.
That's lucky for you. I want to go back to China in terms of your assimilation into Wuhan, and to talk to the audience a little about, Wuhan is in the middle of China, right? Like, it's not a place that many Westerners hang out in. I mean, obviously there is expat communities there, but they're very specialized in certain industries. So tell us a little bit about, your first experience there. How did you go about assimilating, what it meant for you and your work?
I'm very easygoing, so I'm fine to branch out into places. So I remember landing into, I think, maybe Shanghai, and then transitioning from there across to Wuhan. And it was late at night. I traveled from London, and somebody was there to meet me. They bundled me into a taxi and kind of gave directions and said, take him here. I was like, okay, sure. Then all of it, like you're going through Wuhan, a lot of construction, and just the sheer size and scale of it. I'm like, this is a really long road into the airport. Like 30 minutes later, I'm still driving. I'm like, how far away is this place? Because I don't have a SIM card or any internet. I can't follow anything. And then all of a sudden, just this giant red theater kind of pops out of nowhere. I'm like, this I recognize. This I've seen photos of. We're okay. We're going to be fine. So I get out of the car and they said, you're in here. This is your taxi. And it was a beautiful, beautiful hotel. And I just kind of stood outside and just looked at the enormity of this theater. I'd never seen a purpose-built theater this size. It was massive. And the team that welcomed me, Penny Quarry and everyone else, were just really, really, really welcoming. A couple of the divers I'd worked with before on cruise ships, Mike Freese and Brandon, really nice people. And they said, look, if you need anything, we're here. Stage management team were really friendly, just excited to have a replacement, because I went in and I was replacing Sam On. So he had just left. And so we were meant to do a handover, but it just didn't quite work out. So they were just thankful to have a replacement and an extra body to assist. But the assimilation into it, everyone was really welcoming. And yeah, I kind of quite enjoyed it. And I guess I was lucky because my last contract before going was based out of, I think, Beijing or Shanghai. And so I was kind of in the very westernized area of it, but I'd experienced some of the culture. So it wasn't something I was completely new to.
And then after Motiongate, there was the pandemic and back to ships.
So after Motiongate, I went to Macau and I started working for Wind Palace. I kind of took a little bit of break from live performance, and I was part of the public attractions team. So at Wynn, we had this gondola system around this giant performance lake where they had all the fountains. We had these huge floral displays in the north and south atrium, which were the main entrances, and then some robotics shows in the steakhouse. So a very strange entertainment as such, but they asked me to come over and just kind of manage the team. So I did that. My wife and we got pregnant, and Finn was due to be born February 2020. So I naturally went down for the birth, and then kind of very late February 2020, early March 2020 is when the pandemic hit. A couple of emails back and forth, and then the borders closed in Macau. And so I rode it out as long as I could, but the natural conclusion was a mutual separation from the company. And then I based myself in Australia for a couple of years. So I got my permanent residency that took a few months to get, and then went down to the local IGA and started loading in and loading out food and fresh vegetables instead of like rigs. So, but it was nice to just do like a proper graft as well. Trucks come in. It's how you view things, I guess, right? Trucks come in, stock goes out, repeat process. So it was 4 hours a day, 5 days a week. Just nice to kind of get out and meet new people and be that customer focused side of things that I'd learned so well on cruise ships. And my wife and I did that I did that for as long as was really possible, and kind of somehow ended up being the assistant store manager of this really nice, beautiful IGA in a very rural town of Australia called McLean. Ironically, the Scottish town of Australia. It's about an hour south of Byron Bay. And yeah, then it was time to go back to the entertainment industry. So I reached out to a friend, said, look, I'm interested in coming back. And he said, yes, here's the email. This is what you say. They'll be in contact. And then I think within like maybe 2 months of that initial conversation, I was on a flight to Rome and joined a cruise ship. And it was very strange. So it was great going back. It was like rejoining a family that you hadn't seen in a while or a long time. But when you walk on what we call the I-95, that big long stretch of corridor in the middle of on the bottom of the ship, and you see it again, you're like, I didn't think I'd ever see this again, but I'm kind of happy that I am. And then you see an aquatheater, like the 5th generation of aquatheater, when you were part of the first one, you're like, so they still didn't fix that after 10 years. Okay. Or that it's an interesting change. Okay. And then I think randomly I docked with Anthem of the Seas, and I went back into the 270 venue, and they were like, "This is your name on this document." I'm like, "Yeah, that's the manual that we wrote and we pieced together. Like, my number's changed, but if you have any questions, I'm still available to answer anything that I can." And it was really nice just to kind of go back and see these places. So, yeah.
So your wife is Australian, I'm guessing. Then, correct?
Yes, she is. She was born in Lismore, which is,
and
she's
part of the industry as well, or is she?
She's a professional dancer. Yep. She is one of the people that will tell you that she's been dancing from the age of 2 and means it. And she was a professional dancer on ships for 8 years, I believe. And we met on Independence and did most of our contracts together after that. And then when we were both in Dubai, she freelanced here very successfully as well.
Yeah. And so you've moved around so much. What's that been like for the relationship, for the family? You've done some major moves in the last sort of 10 years. How does that play out for you as a family and as, just emotionally? Because it's a lot to move around the countries, right?
Yeah, 100%. So I would love to say that each time we did it, we were like, this is the last one. So when we moved to Dubai, I was just like, I could stay here for a while. 3 years was quite a long time. That was kind of one full rotation of a residency visa here. But Macau was meant to be the retirement plan. So it's a strange connection I have with Macau, having not actually worked at House, but knowing so many people that work there and having seen it for many, many years. But the first time I saw it in 2010, I was just like, I would love to work at this show, but I would be very happy just living in this area, this country. And so when I finally got there, I was really happy and content. But just through natural progression and things, it wasn't meant to be. And so moving around again, when we moved to Australia, we're just like, okay, we'll try. We'll do our best. We'll try to make it work because we don't want to keep moving around. And then I think now being back in Dubai, we're like, this is the long-term plan. We're not looking at anything else directly. Let's just try and enjoy and make our life here again and enjoy it instead of focusing on the next thing all the time. It's time just to live in the moment and enjoy being a mum and dad together and watching the little boy grow.
I feel like there's a lot of making it work and enjoying the moment and your attitude towards work and life.
Yeah, I try and be as optimistic as possible. I try and just enjoy what I do. I do enjoy what I do. I don't try to enjoy it. I enjoy what I do. I love my job. I love the entertainment industry. And I think your attitude reflects on your team and the people around you, but also it has the biggest impact on what your day is going to be like. If you can try and be optimistic, maybe something will go well. So it doesn't always have to go bad, but I try and remain optimistic and always, cliched, thankful for where I am and the experience that I've had. For the longest time, when anybody would ask me about my history or anything, I always said I was lucky. And I think I changed that to say I was quite fortunate. So because I don't think I'm lucky to be where I am. I think I've worked hard, or I've trained hard, or I've done my best to merit maybe the positions that I'm in. But I am fortunate for the timing of where I was and the opportunities that came around.
And now a note from our sponsor. The Theatre Art Life podcast is proud to be sponsored by Clearcom. Clearcom is the leader in voice communications for theatre and the performing arts. Call your cues with the simplicity and elegance of Clearcom Intercom Solutions. You can find them at clearcom.com. Go check them out. You've had quite a trajectory between stagehand to, technicians on ships and then into stage management. What do you think about people's path through the industry in that sense? And then beyond for you personally, is there further other roles or other positions you look to take in the future, or stage management is the one you've settled on as your path?
I would say I don't think this will be my final position. But I'm not a creative person, so I'm not going to become an artistic director or anything like that. I'm very much a person who can understand what someone's trying to do and do my best to make that realization on stage through technical aspects or movements and timing. So there's possibly a plan for the future, but it does revolve around staying in this region of the world. So we're very happy here, and that's great. But I think naturally, wherever you start doesn't determine where you're going to end up. So I have no training in stage management, none whatsoever. I was taught it by a person who I sat beside, and that was very much the cruise ship way of stage managing, which is 100 times different to the Han show way of stage managing. So when I got there and it was like, well, this is a lineup, I'm like, you have let's explain to me what a lineup is, and then from there I learned that and how to build a lineup, and then how to build a daily schedule, because you're training and you're constantly trying to improve and better. Whereas on a cruise ship, outside of doing a cast changeover or a cast install, then you're entertaining the guests. So the venue is very much an entertainment space. So you might have game shows or activities or things like that, but it's your time to train and rehearse and improve is when you build the ship or when you're doing a cast changeover. So I learned those side of things, but I also worked with lots of people who came in and were just like, oh, I trained at this, I have a bachelor or a degree in stage management, and they had such a wealth of knowledge that it was just nice to know what it is that you're taught when you go to that type of lesson or whatnot. But I always felt that my background of audio and then lighting with the Glasgow stage crew and then joining cruise ships, I was just like, I want to learn this. I want to learn how this works and this. So it just kind of branched my knowledge, and that took some of the people at the Han show by surprise. They're just like, why do you know so much about this? I'm like, I've operated it on a different system, but primarily it's the same. So tape, Wagner Bureau, SKS, a winch is a winch, might have a different name on the side of it, but a winch can go, I was always taught, a winch can go forwards or it can go backwards. Kind of all it can do. You're just telling it, go forwards or how to go backwards. Your acceleration, velocity, deceleration, your pulleys, everything else, that's what creates your act, and the performer attached to the end of it creates the magic. Winch could go forwards or backwards. If you understand that, then you're in a good place. And and then going back as a technical director on cruise ships, I really enjoyed being able to step back, because I think you mentioned it very well, Anna, in your keynote for the Australian circus. Technical director at house, entirely different to a technical director at, say, the F1. It's entirely different to a technical director on a cruise ship. That position doesn't necessarily do the same style of technical direction. We don't need to keynote things out to groups or events that are coming in because everything's already there. We're very much an overseeing eye on the product as well as the contingency. So we make sure that everything is available, that should something go wrong, I always said, you guys are employed to do the job that you do. If something goes wrong, I'll let you fix it. I will be behind you if it's maybe not going quick enough or if you have questions, but I want to be there to be a support. And my recent artistic director described it very well. So I'm not here to manage you through your journey, that I'm here to accompany you. And if you have any questions, I'll guide you in the right way if I can, or we'll work together to guide you.
How do you get into this management and leadership realization?
Through the people that you work with. So I would definitely say I take a lot of inspiration through the people that I have worked with, and even through the people that I haven't worked with. So I was thinking of what we were going to discuss all week. And part of me it's the realization of, I know certain people's careers without knowing them. So like, Anna, we worked together very briefly on cruise ships, but I know that you had an interest in going back and doing rigging. And we were very much pushing towards that because there was a need, and also you really wanted to learn it. And Anna, I think you started in Vegas as an intern and then went to house. And I remember I've met you a couple of times in Macau. And there's the connection that Jay flew my wife on cruise ships years ago. And I see what you've done as well, and how you've branched out when Theatre Art Life was created through the two of you, and how that brought this together. And so I know of people's careers, and I just like learning and seeing what they're doing and how they're doing it. So I always ask, well, how was Karina as GSM? What did she do that the team liked? that you guys want to keep, because I don't want to come in and I'm going to change everything. So I've come in and I've been assigned some jobs that are to be done. And so I'll do them to the best that I can. But everything's going to be a team collaboration. So ultimately, I do not call the show 10 times a week. I call the show on rotation with the other guys. So if I'm to rebuild the calling script, it's going to be a conversation. It'll have my ideas, but it'll have your influence as well. And so I really like to just take as much information from those that I have and those that I have not worked with, but through who I follow through social media or conversations about people. So.
Do you think that management is something that is innate in somebody, or it can be trained, or it can be learned in a university? How do you, in your experience with the people that you've worked around, who are the best managers and how are they in those places? What inspires you about them?
I think there are natural born leaders, 100%, but I think it is something that you can learn. So I am very much a different manager now to what I was when I initially left cruise ships. And then when I went back to cruise ships, even last year, I'm now a different manager again. Just because for me, I go in and I observe. Everyone says, you're very quiet. And I'm like, I'm piecing together where we're at. So I'm not sitting there taking notes. I'm not that person at the back writing down when you've done something wrong. I'm just, all right, I'm just observing and I'm finding out where we're at and where I think we should be at, or the direction that I think we should be going. And for me, it's just when you learn from someone, you either learn what you want to do, or you can learn what you don't want to do. You can very easily learn the type of manager that you do be, and that will influence what you want to be as well. So I always say, as when people say, oh, it's if you have kids, like there's no right or wrong way to do it. So it's like, there's definitely a wrong way to raise a kid, but there are many, many right ways to do it. So same as a manager. So you can...
I'm going to use that.
Yeah, like 100%. And it's true. It's like, there's definitely a wrong way to do this, but you make your own choice as to what is right for you. And I felt the same when I was a manager. Like, I wouldn't say I was young when I first became a stage manager, but I was very juvenile, or I can't think of the word, but just, I would like to be able to go back and change some of the decisions that I'd made, but I always, always, always want to find the people who want to progress. So if you want to learn something, I will do everything I can to allow you to learn that. If you want to take my job, I will train you. I will train you to the best that I can. And the biggest, I would say, tick in the box for me is if I was to go for the same job as someone I had trained and they got it over me, I'm like, well, I did a good job. So, and that was a key thing. Like when I went back to ships, the person who trained me on the role of technical director, I trained them to be a stage manager. So it's very much full circle in that sense. And I could see how he had progressed as a manager as well. And yeah.
I like that answer.
Yeah, it's cool.
Thank you.
You've mentioned a couple of times I don't know if it's the importance, but that you've been at the right place at the right time for a number of moments in your life, but also you've worked hard. Is there a correlation there of being...
I think it's showing my age. Like when I wrote my bio, I was just like, I have 20 years experience. I've been in this industry for 20 years now. So it's, you can kind of spot the people that you think will have a career in it, or you can spot those that maybe are at the back a little bit, but have that expertise, or they can have that influence. And so I believe that as much as maybe I was in the right place at the right time, and how I'll reference that is when I initially joined cruise ships, I had an offer for, I think it was Brilliance of the Seas, leaving on Boxing Day. And I said, no, thank you. That doesn't work for me. I will wait for the next offer. And that's when I went to Independence of the Seas, and that's that whole conversation. So had I accepted Brilliance of the Seas, maybe I would have done one contract, maybe I would have done two, but I would not have gone to the startup of the next ship. I wouldn't have met the people that I'd met. probably wouldn't have trained in the things that I've trained in, and maybe I would have had a significantly shorter career in the entertainment industry. So not to sound influential or big-headed in any way, but how I kind of view myself now is maybe I'm the right person at the right time for someone else. So maybe I'm going somewhere because I could happily accept any job. If it allows me to support my family, I'll happily do anything if it gives me an enjoyment. But maybe I can go somewhere and someone can be like, this person, I can learn a lot from this person, or I can allow them to do something they want to do. And that's where I'm at now, for sure. I would love to just help someone further their career in any way that they wanted to, be it related to the job they're actually doing or not. So if we have someone if we have a stage manager who wants to go, I want to learn rigging, go. This is the head of rigging. This is the assistant head of rigging. Go to your heart's content. If there's something you want to do and I'm free to cover it, happily do it. So there's very rarely something that I'm doing that is as important as helping someone else pursue a career path.
I think that's a sign of a mature manager in that sense. You always want people to be growing and learning and becoming better versions of themselves, right? Because it only contributes better to the industry as a whole. And like you said, there's no more pride than even your own personal success than seeing somebody you've trained have success as well. I love that
100%.
feeling, right? Like, I think that's beautiful. Yeah. So what's your favorite thing about your job or the industry?
Entertaining people. So it's the standing ovation at the end. I'm going to sound very cliche or very Disney. But these are things that I've believed for a number of years. So I believe that in every single audience of every show that we do, there is one person that we can encourage or start a career in this magic that we call the job that we do. And what I love going out and I love speaking to people in the house and the audience, and you always see people, they always stand at the end and they take photos. First question I ask, would you like me to take a photo for you? Second question I ask is, do you have any questions? And they're just like, oh, well, how deep is the pool? And it's like, well, it's this deep. And then it's like, well, how do you know all this? Well, actually, this is what I do. And then they're just like, oh, that's incredible. Like, how did you get started in this? And then it's the same conversation that we're gently having. So it's telling someone I started. And always when they have teenagers or young kids and they're just like, do you want to go backstage? If it's safe to do so? Because I know that on ships it's a lot different to what we do here. So it's a lot more dangerous to go backstage sometimes. Like, I could take you backstage, happily do this. But on a cruise ship, I'm just like, look, here's my number. This is the time of day when I'm free. If you have any questions, give me a call. I'll happily entertain any questions and anything that I can in order to do that for you. And they're just like, wow, that's amazing. So you've made our holiday and things like that. And so it's just nice. So that's what I love the most, is finding those people and just that sense of wow, of every high dive, of every Russian swing, of every bungee straps, of every moment in music, lighting change. It's all the very simple thing. Flames get such a great reaction. You're just a piece of fire on stage when you view it that way. But at the right time, at the right moment, it's magical and it's engaging. And you can always see it in the adverts for Disney World or say Disneyland Hong Kong, where the light flashes and it's on the kids' eyes. And so it's that very cheesy thing. That's very much what I enjoy.
And if you could change one thing about your job or the industry, what would you change?
I think a lot of it's based upon who you know. And naturally, people employ people that they know. People employ those that they've worked before. So I would maybe try, and instead of like an internship or things like that, I would maybe try, say, like on any new creation or once every X amount of years, if there is a turnover, every company should be aiming to bring on someone directly out of college with no experience and just taking that risk as such and seeing if it can pay off. So that would be a very risky business and something that's very, very hard to actually enforce or make happen. But I think it's a lovely idea to think of. Because I remember when I started, it was Google was in its infancy, and I was just like, okay, PRG. Yeah, that's a lightning company. Google that. Who's the head of PRG? Somehow getting their email and just sending off a CV. It's like, I have hung a light before. Can I come work for you? And they're like, you need a little bit more experience than that, but I appreciate the desire. So, and it started from there. So for sure, I would love to be able to take new people, like brand new people, and seeing what we can do with them.
Well, I'm sure you can start implementing it in your position. You might
I believe I possibly have an opening coming up, and so I will. I'll be opening the conversation this week as to what can we do, like how can we really make this happen instead of taking like a veteran. So I really want to try and take someone brand new, even like reaching out to college lecturers, stage management lecturers, saying, who is someone you think has a general interest in doing something like this? So I have a bit of groundwork to do, but
one of the opportunities I think also when you work in an expat life is to work more local skills into those kind of roles too. There's such a, it's something I always bears down in my mind when we're doing projects in new markets to try and get other people within that market. We've worked recently in Saudi Arabia, and a lot of that stuff is imported, and it's really important if they want the industry to grow that those people get trained. And I think to a certain extent, even in Dubai, there's now the Sharjah Performing Arts Academy, but what's that pipeline from there to people working in the industry? It's still quite developing, I'd say, right?
Yeah, it's in its infancy for sure, but at least it's started, right? So I had a conversation with the GM the other day of like, I understand that the difficulty in bringing the whole of the Sharjah Performing Arts here for a show. I get it. Not as feasible as that. Can we visit them? Like, can the executive director, can the coaches, can physio, can rigging? Can we take the HODs out for an afternoon and hold a seminar with the school itself? Like, meet people, because we had one intern come in and it was so last minute, unsurprisingly. They were just like, they need to be shown everything in 3 days. So they have 1 hour with each department. And you're like, they're not really going to get to feel what they want to do. It's like you need them for a sustained amount of time. But you also need to ask them, what do you want to get out of your brief time here? So I really want to see if I can push that forward with the GM, and just whether or not I have anything intelligent to say is always debatable. Whether or not I have anything to bring to the table is debatable by those around the table. But I think that when we're at a performing arts school, I'll have some form of a correct answer somewhere.
It also doesn't have to be you, yeah, as well.
No, 100%. So coaching, PWD, rigging, automation, carps, all of it. Someone will have an interest in something.
That's it. Yeah, get them involved. And if 100%. You could nominate a podcast guest that we could pick up in your network, who's an interesting person we should talk to?
There is a gentleman called Eric Rouse who works for EPS in Vegas. So he's had a really long career through circus and everything else. And he is, I believe his current title is like head of integration for new shows with EPS and with Royal Caribbean. And they're doing some really cool stuff. So lovely people, great amount of knowledge. I think he was previously a director in rigging. So he's got a phenomenal amount of knowledge in him. He holds seminars and classes on rigging knowledge and doing all of people's IRATA trainings and things. So Eric Rouse.
We've already reached out to him, but I shall do so again and say, hey.
So Jack recommended.
Should really be here.
Now you've been recommended. You have to come to the podcast. It's an interesting question because it's always like it's an interesting person who springs to mind as soon as that question gets asked, because we kind of put you on the spot. But it's like that means that person has an impact on you. And I think that's kind of interesting when people can answer straight away.
I'm forgetting the individual surname, and they'll probably really hate me for this, but I do have one other person. Theodore Sivas. His name is Theo, and I can put you in contact with him, very happy, but he was a huge inspiration in the outpouring happiness of at work. This guy stays awake 18 hours a day, and he implemented, created, designed, and made everything work for almost every single Royal Caribbean show from a show control project since before I was there, and he's still doing it now. He is a wealth of knowledge. He is an Emmy award-winning composer, I believe, as well. So like his passion is in classical music.
As you do.
Is he Greek?
Yeah, he is. Yes, you'll know. Yeah, Theo.
He is fantastic. I don't have his contact, but he is. Yes, I agree with Jack. He is fantastic.
Yeah. He is a really genuinely lovely human being with a ridiculous amount of knowledge, and he's very funny. And Theo. And I'll happily pass along his contact details to you.
Awesome.
Amazing. Thank you so much. Thank you, Jack, for spending time with us on the Theatre Art Life podcast. It's been a joy to hear about your career, and good luck with La Pearl. And I'm going to drop in on you next time I'm in Dubai for sure.
Yes, please do. So thank you to the both of you. Honestly, it was such an honor to get the email from Rozelle and just to be able to chat with you guys. And you're veterans of the industry. You're both really famous for what you do, and I've been fortunate to either see you work or work with you. And please understand that, albeit the short interactions that we have had, you have had an impact on how I manage, how I teach, how I learn. So I really want to thank you guys and for what you do. I wish you all the best with the companies and your jobs that you're doing. So I look forward to hopefully seeing you in person, and in the future, who knows what happens. I'd love to work with you both in any capacity.
Same.
Wonderful.
Shared.
Thank you so much, Jack.
Theatre Art Life is a global media site for entertainment. Memberships start at only $38 per year. You can have unlimited access to our daily published articles, including entertainment news and the writings of active industry professionals, ensuring that you are always up to date on the global happenings in the world of entertainment. Become a part of the international entertainment community and join us now at www.theatreartlife.com.